Who doesn't love a shiny new intro? How about that? But hello and welcome to Fourth Tier Fever. Just before we get into this episode, please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. The support on there has been absolutely insane over the last season. We're obviously looking to continue to grow as much as we can, and obviously the more you guys support us, the more we can start to push out and really push our content as much as possible. So if you want to be the first to hear about everything we're doing, then please do press that big red button. It costs you absolutely nothing. Now, okay, we're officially into our new season content, and I mean, you may have noticed I'm the only one here. Everyone else is off on holiday, or at least that's what I've been told. So you're stuck with me today, but that's okay because, well, there's no actual football to talk about as such. We are in the transfer window, and well, there's quite a lot that's happened. What I will firstly do is quickly explain what our plan's going to be going forward into the next sort of few weeks. Obviously, there's no football to cover, so there's no point doing preview review episodes or anything like that. So we're dropping back down to one podcast a week temporarily. Whilst we're in the off season, we're going to be doing weekly sort of transfer update videos, which is essentially where the idea for this video came from. But but obviously we've missed a couple of weeks along the way. We've had a little bit of a break. So I think there's been roughly 60-ish transfers so far. And if I did all of those in one go, I think we'd all get bored very, very quickly. So instead, I have devised a bit of a plan, and we're going to be doing our top 10 transfers so far. And I've got everyone else to pitch in as well. But like I say, it's just for me for today. But we'll have a look at some of these names and discuss our thoughts and all the rest of it. Because let's be real, there's been some exciting signings actually so far. And we're going to start at the number 10 spot. And already I've gone with a bit of a rogue pick. I've gone for Adam Senior, who went from Halifax to Barnet. Jake's gone for Will Davies from Sutton to Fleetwood. Jack's gone Adam Lewis Morecambe to Chesterfield. Kieran's gone Gethin Jones from Bolton to my lads, the Dons. And Jordan's gone for Oliver Norburn from Blackpool to Notts. Now, I'll take a deeper look at the players I've picked because obviously I can't really explain too much about the other guys' picks unless they also pick the same players as me. But there are some interesting names there, some of which will come up again later. So I won't mention all of them now, but I do want to pick up on Adam Lewis, which to me comes across as quite an interesting one. Obviously, Morecambe had a very rough season, 13 points from safety, relegated to the National League, and lost their EFL spot essentially. But Adam Lewis had a reasonable season. I believe he picked up a few assists playing as a fullback. He's a very good attacking fullback, which is something that Paul Cook will want at Chesterfield, especially now that they don't have Jack Sparks. So that I think Adam Lewis is a suitable replacement. I do have some questions over defensive capabilities, defensive work rate, but I think it's a reasonable signing with a bit of training. Absolutely, that could be a positive one. However, of course, I'm going to highlight my player, and that is Adam Senior, which is I think it's one that's gone under the radar a little bit. But he played 44 games for Halifax, scoring 4 goals and 3 assists from defence. And Halifax are actually one of the better defensive sides in that league as well. So Barnet have taken one of the stronger defenders that also has attacking output from the top end of their league, and they're bringing them up into League Two. And honestly, I think that's quite smart. There's obviously been this whole debate of the bottom half of League Two potentially being weaker than the top half of the National League, and well, if with a signing like that, could well be proven right. In fact, and actually, I think it's very smart business. They're taking strong players that they've come up against already, and they'll be aware of him. Obviously, they'll have done their research, and I think this is one where he could slot in quite well. Not necessarily the most experienced, but he's a good age at 23 to really kick on and find his find his feet in the EFL, and I think it's a clever little pickup. So I'm now going to move on to the 9th spot, and again, none of us can ever agree on these things. But I've gone with Nathan Smith. That's going from Port Vale to Tranmere. Jake's gone for Ethan Bristow, going from is that Minnesota United to Tranmere? I believe it is. Jack's gone Ryan Sturck, also to Chesterfield, obviously. Kieran's also gone Ethan Bristow, and then Jordan's gone for Matt Smith, going from St Johnstone to Newport. So that'll be Kieran happy with that one. So Ethan Bristow, I am going to highlight quickly because I think it's quite a clever pickup. But that Tranmere already have a lot of EFL experience, but it's winning mentality that's missing from them, essentially. Obviously, they had a bit of a rough season, but with the players they've got, you would have thought they'd be doing better. Ethan Bristow is someone that has done well previously. He was obviously part of Stockport's squad when they got promoted out of League Two. So I think it's quite a clever pickup. They've obviously also got Patrick Brow on that side they've picked up. I think recently came back for a longer term injury, if I remember correctly, at Northampton. But they picked up 2 new left backs and I think that matches up quite nicely with Cameron Norman on the other side as well. So it's quite a clever one. I'm certainly one to keep an eye on. Matt Smith, again, I'm going to give a quick mention to him as well. A player that we have had at MK Dons, and to be honest, I wasn't very impressed. My only real memories of him are hitting the bar against Cambridge on the opening day of our relegation season from League One. And then again I think it was against Fleetwood where he slipped up and again costing us more points in League One as we got relegated. But he's gone to St Johnstone, done reasonably well, lost his place in the second half of this season, really. So he has been moved on, has a bit more experience now. I think he could be a useful signing for Newport. They need the experience desperately. Whether that's enough on his own, I think they need more pickups, which is why I personally didn't go with him. I personally need to see more before I believe that he can help turn them around. I'm very concerned over Newport at the minute, just based on choosing another inexperienced manager, albeit with alongside a coach that knows Newport very, very well. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I'm not necessarily convinced just yet. But we'll have to wait and see. So let's move on to my pick very quickly. So Nathan Smith. And again, it comes back to talking about Tranmere and that need to find winners, essentially. Players that have that winning mentality already instilled in them, and Nathan Smith is exactly that. Port Vale have just been promoted. He played 24 games, which is it's a reasonable amount. Not too much in terms of goal scoring, but then he's a defender, so it's not exactly a necessity. Just 0 goals and 1 assist, but he's proven himself to be a solid player, and it's reinforcing a back line that desperately needed reinforcing, if we're being totally honest. And I know that with Bristow, Brow, Smith all coming in, I know Jack will probably tell you all himself when he's next on. He seems to be in quite a good mood, and you can see why with some of these pickups. So let's move on to number 8, and again, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I've gone for Will Davies, going from Sutton to Fleetwood, another non-league pickup. Jake's gone with Oliver Norburn, Blackpool to Notts. Jack's copied me with Will Davies. Kieran's gone for Seb Palmer-Holden from Bristol City to Gillingham. I'm glad someone brought him up because he's not in my 10. And Jordan's gone with Gethin Jones, Bolton to my lot again. So his second mention of the day. So yeah, again, it's quite a mixed bunch, but it just shows the strength of some of the windows already. So I'm going to pick up on Seb Palmer-Holden very, very quickly. I think he's a smart addition. I know Kieran was saying that he did very, very well at Newport, because I know he had a short spell there, which is probably why he's made this 10, which is entirely fair enough. But the key thing here is it's an attacking player. And for years and years and years at this point, Gillingham's problem has been attacking output, and well, it's just a young, exciting player that has a point to prove, I suppose. He's obviously not quite made the cut with Bristol City, but this is a chance to have a go at the base of the EFL again. And under Gareth Ainsworth, I think it could make a lot of sense. We could see a strong season out of him. It's just a case of because there's that unproven element there. I'm a little uncertain. He's one of the players I'd mention. I'd have as an honourable mention personally. It is an exciting pickup, but one to keep an eye on. Well, let's talk about Will Davies. Let's do it. It's another non-league pickup, but I mean he scored 17 goals and 5 assists, playing at a level that is not too dissimilar from Summer League Two. Obviously, there is a step up there, but it's still an impressive return for a team that weren't anything particularly special without trying to be too mean to Sutton there. He's a little bit older than Adam Senior, 26. Hasn't I don't know. The thing that concerns me a little bit with this one, I will admit there is concern there, is he a bit of a one season wonder, which could well be the case. But that's one we're just going to have to sort of wait and see on. It's an exciting one though, and I don't know. I think a Fleetwood could well be a good fit for him, which is why I've put him as high as 8th. It's an interesting pick, one to keep an eye on. Not necessarily certain of what to expect because I'll be honest, my non-league knowledge is terrible. I'm not going to pretend I know a whole lot about this guy, but you can't argue with those sorts of stats. If he can do that sort of thing again, even if he just contributes 10, you'd say that's a reasonable return for the level of player they've brought in there. Right. 7th. And this is where I start to bring in some of my own, one of my own team's players. Gethin Jones, I've gone for, obviously, came from Bolton to join my lot. Jake's matched me and gone for the same. Jack's gone Seth Palmer Holden this time. Already discussed him a little bit. Kieran's gone Matt Smith, Johnson to Newport. No surprise to see him put him a little bit higher. And John's gone Ethan Bristow. So again, we've discussed those 3 players a little bit. So let's discuss Gethin Jones. Okay, so this is one that I think is going to go under the radar a little bit. Obviously, at Dons, we've made some high profile signings. There's no getting away from that. And I think, to be fair, I think if we hadn't signed a certain 2 other names that will definitely be coming up later, don't you worry. If we hadn't signed those 2, this guy would probably be getting discussed a little bit more. Gethin Jones, he's a solid defender. He's had a promotion before from this league. I think he sort of fell out of favour a little bit this season. 23 appearances, no goals, 1 assist. But again, defence is the priority here. And from a Don's perspective, it's what he can bring going from, in terms of versatility, I suppose is the best way of putting it. He's someone that can play as a right back. He can play as the right-sided centre-back in a free. He can play as a wing-back. Dons have struggled for this sort of flexibility. We've been stuck with our sort of 5 at the back or 3 at the back, whichever way you look at it. But we've been stuck there and basically only had Aaron the Main on that side with no other options other than midfielders playing out of position, which is obviously a problem. Jones solves that problem, and like I say, he has promotion-winning experience. So for us, it's quite a smart signing. I do like this one. I don't think it's necessarily one that's going to grab headlines as such, but I'd say it's an enabling signing just because it allows us to do so much more with the other players at our disposal. So that's what makes me excited about that one, and that's why I've put him on the list. Which, I mean, the other lads seem to agree with me based on their placements here. Right, so moving on to 6th now, and again, bit of a mix of players, but you're starting to see a couple of same faces pop up. I've gone with Oliver Norburn, Blackpool to Notts. So is Jack. Jake's gone for Mitch Pinnock, going from Northampton to Bromley. Kieran's gone Nathan Smith, Port Vale to Tranmere, obviously we discussed earlier. And Jordan went for Ryan Stirk, Walsall to Chesterfield, who I'm sure we're going to discuss later as well. So, I mean, we kind of got to discuss Notts at this point, don't we? And as I'm recording this, it's literally just been announced that they've got a new manager. Finally, after a month of waiting, not to have their new manager, and it's Martin Patterson, which I've got to be honest, I'm very concerned about. He doesn't have much managerial experience. In fact, his only managerial experience was with Burton in League One, where he had a 25% win rate and only just steered them to safety from relegation. It's not great, to be honest, but I think it kind of just highlights a string of problems that are going on at Notts at the minute, and maybe Notts fans can tell me more because obviously I don't support your club. I don't follow them quite as closely as I'm sure you do. Um, but I don't know. It feels like this can't have been the first choice for it to take a month and for it to be someone that's unproven. And if anything, they've done a poor job with the only experience they've had at a similar level. It kind of has to be a concern, especially for a club that supposedly well resourced. And it's not even the first time this summer that we've had these sorts of concerns. Obviously, we had it with David McGoldrick. Supposedly, they're not wanted to give him a pay cut again, and when he'd already taken a pay cut to join them, and inevitably he's now left. And what happens with that, who knows? He was rumoured to join my lads, but whether he will, I don't know. I don't know. It's a very strange one because not only have they had this sort of long unknown period when no one really knows what's happening. In that time, they've also signed 4 players whilst they don't have a manager, which is probably the only reason I put Oliver Norburn this low. Actually, is because I mean the manager hasn't picked him because the manager's not in the door. And he's a solid player. He's played 22 games in League One last season, a more experienced name at 32, but potentially, I don't know. He's a sort of player that could have a similar effect to like a Richie Smallwood, where he just sits in your midfield, does a job, orchestrates things, and at League Two sometimes that's all you need from a midfield man. But like I said, I just struggle to see what the direction is. Obviously, with Notts, we know there's a clear style of play in terms of the whole possession thing. That's kind of their playing identity. But until that manager's in the door, you might have just signed 4 players that he doesn't even want. That's the reality of it. You don't know, which I don't know. It gives me that sort of uncertainty. I think Oliver Norbur's a good pickup, but does he fit into the new manager's plans? I don't know. Probably, but it's anyone's guess. It just doesn't feel very controlled from Notts at the minute. Is probably the way I'd put it. But obviously, let me Notts fans get in the comments and discuss this with us and see if you can help us get to the bottom of this. Because to be honest, there's a lot to sort of comprehend in there, and it's something I'm sure we'll be discussing more in the coming weeks. But no, on the face of it, ignoring the bigger picture, I think Oliver Norburn is a solid pickup for this level. Right, moving on to 5th. So I've gone Ryan Stirk here, so we'll discuss him in a second. Obviously going from Walsall to Chesterfield. Kieran's copied me on that one. Jake's gone Nathan Smith, we've obviously discussed already. And Jack and Jordan have both gone Mitch Pinnock, who, again, we're going to discuss later because, spoiler, he does also feature on my list somewhere. So we'll have a little bit of a discussion on Ryan Stirk. And, I mean, he's a higher profile name, isn't he? At least in terms of this season. Also, obviously had a up until about January, had a very, very good season. It's obviously all fallen apart, but there's no denying that Stirk was. I mean, he was a regular in that team, wasn't he? He played 44 games, scored a goal, 4 assists, reliable operator, and at 24 years old as well. So a decent age to still grow and improve. Um, so I think for Walsall, it's a big loss because ultimately that's one of their stronger players. Uh, but from a Chesterfield perspective, that's absolutely huge. They've obviously lost Ollie Banks. I think did he go to York, I want to say, but he's dropped down to non-league. They've obviously wanted to try and up the level of quality in their side, and I think they've done that with Stirk. And yeah, I don't know, it's just an all-around impressive pickup. He's proven at this level now, I'd say, and there's a lot of potential to grow even more as well. He's someone that if they were to get promoted, you could see him still staying with the squad in League One and potentially doing a job there as well, although that's obviously looking quite far into the future. But no, that's an exciting pickup for me, and it's one to. I don't know. I think Chesterfield are proving already that they're not messing around. Put it that way. With some of their pickups, they're looking very, very strong. Uh, but again, that's something we'll discuss in later on in the season because we will be bringing back our predictions as bad as they are, and having another go at it and seeing if we can actually do any better. All right, moving into fourth, and we will be discussing Mitch Pinnock because that's who I've chosen, going from Northampton to Bromley. Kieran's again matched me on that one. Jake's gone Ryan Stirk, so again, you can see we all kind of rate him. And Jack and Jordan have gone Nathan Smith, which again makes sense. Personally, didn't want to put him too high just due to lack of game time, but I can see why they have because again, proven winner. So let's talk Mitch Pinnock, and I think this is going to be, well, I would say one of the most underrated pieces of business, but I mean, we all seem to have put him in our list somewhere, so maybe not. But I think from a wider footballing perspective, this is a very underrated signing. Uh, he's played 46 games in League One. That's every single game with Northampton. 2 goals, 7 assists, which is a reasonable return. And to be honest, he probably could have stayed at that level. He probably could have stayed in League One, but I believe he chose to move on for I believe personal reasons. I can't remember exactly what they were, but he's decided to move into London, so Bromley. And from a Bromley perspective, this makes a whole lot of sense. Obviously, they don't have Danny Imray. Imray was only a loan. So, in terms of uh, creative output, there was a big void to fill. And I think they've done that straight away. 9 contributions in League One is reasonable. So, to drop a level, I think he could improve on that even more. Again, quite an experienced player. And to be honest, he's doing quite well when even I'm admitting it. And this guy used to play for AFC Wimbledon, of course. So yeah, I mean he fills the gap left by Imre. Obviously, I know there's rumours surrounding Michael Cheek. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. But they've also got Marcus Denanga that's returning from long-term injury as well. So there's a lot of attacking excitement, I think, still in this Bromley side as things stand. And given that I think the second season when you get promoted as that sort of playoff team, I think that playoff team in the second season it becomes a bit tougher. So to see them make a signing like this to me comes across as a statement of intent. And I know they were aiming for playoffs season just gone, but this to me suggests that they're going to at least try to do it again and go for that same target. It's a really promising signing, and again, I think one that will probably get overlooked by some, but no, it's impressive business. Right, moving on to third, and well, if I remember correctly, I think all of us have picked the same 3 players, just in a different order. So for third, I've gone with Dilan Markanday. going from Blackburn to Chesterfield. Obviously been quite well, he's been discussed a lot this season, this sort of past season by League One and League Two fans, just from playing for Chesterfield and later on for Leyton Orient as well. And then the other two, of course, are two that have joined my club: Nathaniel Mendes-Lang and Aaron Collins. Jake and Jack went for Mendes-Lang. Kieran went for Collins, and Jordan joined me with picking Markanday in third. So we'll, like I said, because of all these three I mentioned elsewhere, we'll cover my pick first. So we'll cover Markanday. And like I said, he had a very strong first half of the season with Chesterfield as well. So they've brought back their man, which I like. That's smart business. He made 24 appearances there, 7 goals, 3 assists, decent return. That then earned him a different loan up in League One with Leyton Orient. Still played 17 games, or a lot of those I believe were from the bench, scoring 3 and 1 assist, but he didn't really get the opportunity that he probably deserved, because obviously Leyton Orient were doing so well. They got themselves into the playoffs and all the rest of it, so there wasn't much room for him to wiggle into that team. So he's now obviously made that move back to Chesterfield, where he's previously had success quite recently under the same management and obviously a very similar looking squad. I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it? There's no other way I can put it. It just makes sense. He's an exciting player. He's still quite young as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there as one of the potential sort of player of the seasons come the end of it all. But obviously, it is very, very early to be calling anything like that. Right, let's move on to second. And to be honest, this is the exact reason why I made sure that everyone else did this top 10 with me, and it wasn't just me giving my opinions, because I realized this is going to look incredibly biased because ultimately I've got 2 of my team's players at the top. I've gone Nathaniel Mendes-Lang as second, obviously joining Dons from Derby. Kieran and Jordan have matched me on that, and then Jake and Jack have gone with Markanday, who we obviously just discussed. So Mendes-Lang, I mean, this was quite an early signing from us, and I think it caught the league by surprise, really, didn't it? And I know there's been quite a few sort of past it comments because he's 33, he actually played quite a lot of games in the Championship, 41, with 3 goals, 4 assists. Not the most, not the most outlandish sort of return or anything like that, but he's a proven player at League One level. And if you look at the season before, he got 10 goals and 18 assists and was in the team of the season in League One as Derby got promoted to the Championship under then manager Paul Warne, who is obviously now our manager at Dons. So again, it's just one of those transfers where it just makes sense. And that, yes, it's a couple of years later since he had that fantastic return. Does it matter when he's dropping a level? Well, 2 levels now, in fact. Probably not. We all saw what happened when McGoldrick first dropped down to this level. And, I mean, he's still banging in the goals. Where he goes now, again, obviously, who knows at this stage. But if you've got that quality, you just have... it almost doesn't matter. As long as you can still find the goal. And I believe Nathaniel Mendes-Lang probably still can. And he's a little bit younger than McGoldrick by about 3 years or so as well. So... I mean, he's a very exciting signing for us, and it's a huge statement of intent, but maybe not quite as big as this one. So my top pick, and Jake's top pick, and Jack's top pick, and Jordan's top pick is Aaron Collins. Obviously, a very recent signing, joining Dons from Bolton. Kieran had to be different. I think he just didn't want to put a Dons player top, to be honest. He's gone with Markanday, but which is honestly fair enough. I think those 3 are probably relatively interchangeable. Obviously, I'd lean towards my Dons players, but I can certainly see why he went with Markanday there. But I've had enough talking about Chesterfield. Let's talk Dons. Let's talk Dons some more. Why not? And it's early to call it because obviously we're halfway through the window. But I think this could be the signing of the window done, dusted already, full stop. Ultimately, Aaron Collins is someone that was Bolton's top scorer. He played 45 League One games, 12 goals, 4 assists. It was 19 goals and 5 assists in all competitions. He's, like I said, Bolton's top scorer, Bolton's player of the season. That's a top end League One team, and we've basically bodied them. We've bodied them to sign their top striker, which I'm obviously a very big fan of. I'm quite excited about it, to be honest. I'm not going to try hide it too much. He's proven at League One level, and that's kind of all there is to it. He's got enough experience to lead, to not necessarily lead the line, because that's not necessarily his role in the side. I could potentially see him coming in off the left, depending on how we set up and formations, all the rest of it. We're 4 games into Paul Warne's tenure. I don't know quite what formation he's going to lean towards coming in this upcoming season, but we'll wait and see on that. But this is an extremely exciting signing, providing there's no injuries or anything like this. This is one of the top players in the division, and we've spent a lot of money on him. I know the rumours going around seem to be about, what was 800k roughly, which is ridiculous for a League Two side, but that's the ambition that my club is showing at the minute. And we've obviously underperformed massively. Season just gone. Season before, we we did enough until we didn't. We were fighting out the top 3, didn't quite make it, and then we don't talk about the playoffs because Crawley. But no, this is just a statement of intent of, look, we've had enough of League Two. We just need to get ourselves promoted at this point. And I think I've probably annoyed the other FTF lads enough, just with my optimistic talking of the upcoming season with a signing like this. Like I said, it's very high profile for this division, and it's just an overall statement signing. And he's someone that, well, you get what you pay for. So hopefully that statement will ring true with this one. And of course, that's it. We've essentially made it to our top 10. Obviously, like I said, there's been roughly 60-ish signings so far. So I will have a very, very quick look at some honourable mentions as well, because there are plenty of decent names that I think are worthy of a mention that we haven't necessarily covered there. But we will be doing a transfer ranking the transfer window episode later on in the season, like we did last year, for those of you that are longer term viewers. So in terms of honourable mentions, names that didn't get mentioned, Tom Pett rejoining Oldham. I think that's smart business, makes sense. EFL experience was there on loan last season. It just makes sense to bring him back. He keeps the side nice and settled. Won't need to necessarily gel as such. He's already very familiar with his surroundings there. Just a smart signing. Then there's Tom Anderson, which I believe was the first signing in League Two. Obviously going to Shrewsbury. And again, it's just a case of bringing in a proven winner there, because I believe he's at Doncaster again. Played a reasonable amount of games. Similar situation to Nathan Smith, really. So perhaps a little surprised he didn't get mentioned at all. But I'd say worthy of an honourable mention at the very least. Then there's Russian Hepburn Murphy. Had to mention the other Dons lad that joined. Crawley's top scorer in League One, and a potentially exciting signing. He's the right sort of profile for a Paul Warne side. I get, whether the output will be there, I'm not necessarily sure yet, but he's going to have lots of competition. John Lecco's just signed a new contract, so again, there's potential. There's a lot of potential there. Josh March going to Crewe from Harrogate, I think is an interesting one. Crewe have had a bit of a striker calamity, I suppose. To be honest, they just ran out of players, and they needed a proven scorer. And I think March will do a reasonable job there. I don't think he's not your 20 goal season striker, I don't think, but it's a reasonable pickup. And I think we've got to mention Harrogate's business. And again, we'll cover this more in the transfer window ranking episode later on in the season. But players like Reece Smith, Sean Nikolsky, they picked both up from Maidenhead, who were relegated. But I don't believe goals were the problem. I think they just had a leaky defence. They actually scored plenty of goals. In fact, I think they scored more than Halifax, and they got in the playoffs. So they've picked up 2/3 of that attack, and both have done a reasonable job this season. Season just gone, and well, they're not going to do the same numbers, I don't think, but they'll do reasonable numbers. And given how poor Harrogate's season was, I think this is potentially an improvement. And then they've also added Tom Bradbury, that I think is worth mentioning. I believe he was Cheltenham's captain, correct me if I'm wrong. But again, quite an exciting one. A player with that sort of experience. And then the only other two I've got to mention there is Darren Aldiker. Probably badly pronounced that, but there you go. Going from Chesterfield to Swindon. Wasn't particularly impressed with him against us, but that's probably because he got sent off. But again, experience in a side that did reasonably well. I'm not quite sure what I think of Swindon just yet at this stage, to be honest, but that's probably the most impressive of their signings, in my opinion, so far. And then finally, Reece Staunton, who's joined Grimsby. Can't remember who he joined from. It was a non-league side. Spennymoor. I think that was it. Who I think is probably the Denver Hume replacement, because I think he's likely to leave. But he's done some very decent numbers, albeit at National League North level, which is obviously quite a big dip. But at the same time, there's potential there, and there's time for Artel to develop him, which is where that one could be. There's a lot of potential. You won't necessarily see it straight away, but that could potentially become a very, very good signing indeed. But that's all the names I'm going to mention for now, because I realise I could keep going on for quite a while. And to be honest, I have been going on for quite a while. Somehow it's still 37 minutes, despite me being on my own. But yeah, like I said, there's lots going on with League Two at the minute in terms of transfer. So we will be keeping on top of it with weekly transfer episodes, and it won't just be me. I'm sure. I believe Jack or Jordan might be taking the next one. I'm sure we'll confirm that whenever we can. But we'll be doing that weekly. Close to the season, we'll start pumping things back up again. We'll have our sort of yearly predictions episodes, all the rest of it, all that fun stuff. And of course, if you have any suggestions, then please do let us know as well, because we're always open to suggestions. But I'm going to call it there on this one. So thank you so much for listening. Like I said, please do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or go and subscribe if you're not watching on YouTube, and just head over to our YouTube account, Fourth Tier Fever. But no, and share it, comment, all the rest of it. You know the drill. Wherever you get your podcast from, as Jordan says. But no, this has been a fun one. I'm looking forward to the season ahead, and well, let's just see how it goes. I'm feeling good about this one. But we'll catch you on the next one.